Hey everyone, it's Gabby, and welcome back to another episode of Bread Podcast. Let's talk about love today. I feel like when most people hear the word love, they instantly think of romantic relationships, but there are actually several different kinds of love according to the ancient Greeks. Let's start with philia. The Greeks defined this kind of love as affectionate love. It pretty much is the kind of love that you feel for your friends. Even though a lot of people connect the word love with romance, physical attraction isn't necessary for love. This type in particular, though, is more like a brotherly, sisterly love. You might not realize it, but you're showing philia whenever you engage in deep conversation with a friend, when you're open and trustworthy, and also by being supportive when a friend is going through a hard time. Now, let's talk about eros. I think sometimes eros is not much talked about because it involves physical touch, such as kissing, hugging, holding hands, and other forms of physical affection, which a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about. But in reality, physical affection is such an important part in a relationship, and the desire for another person's physical body is so normal that it shouldn't be awkward to talk about. Now, let's talk about pragma. I feel like a good example of pragma is old couples who have been together for a long time. Yet the feelings and respect for each other are still there, just like when they first started dating. I think this is so important in a relationship because nowadays not many people seek for a long-term relationship, and therefore don't put the effort and commitment needed for a relationship to work out and last. And if they do, it's usually one person putting effort and the other not putting effort at all, which is why pragma can't be reached. Instead of having the idea of falling in love, look at it more like standing in love with the partner you want by your side forever. Now let's talk about storge. Storge comes easily and immediately in parent and child relationships. I think we've all heard the phrase, your parents will always love you no matter what. I guess it's partly true, but storge is more like a connection. Like for example, when your parents sacrifice their time, personal pleasures, and even themselves for you. Parents usually work super hard to give their kids the best education they can afford, feed them, and give them all the basic needs. I think most of us have experienced a time when there was some sort of food or snack on the table, but there was only a little bit left and it was for your mom or your dad. But instead of them eating it, they gave it to you instead. Also, when you get into an argument with your parents, sometimes things can get really heated and words can be really painful. But in the end, your parents will always forgive you because they know you didn't really mean what you said. And because the love they have for us as their children is so strong that it's almost impossible for them not to forgive you and stop loving you. Now, let's talk about the feeling of butterflies in your stomach. This is called ludus. And this is when you first start to fall for someone or when you start having a crush on someone. This is also reflected in flirting, the playful jokes, and the teasing at the beginning of a relationship. Now, let's talk about mania. Mania is a type of love that's not really a good kind. Personally, I wouldn't call it a type of love, but I guess we can say it's a toxic and obsessive love, which definitely should not be present in a relationship because it leads to jealousy and possessiveness. I think we all have that one girlfriend who has a toxic boyfriend, but she doesn't know it. That one girlfriend whose boyfriend doesn't let her hang out with other guys, always has to be with him, doesn't have much freedom. They have access to their social media accounts and constantly check their messages with other people. She's not allowed to go to parties alone and wear what she wants and many other things. Sounds familiar? I think a lot of us can relate to this one. Well, this is exactly what mania is. It's toxic and it's not okay. Nowadays, this type of behavior is so normalized that it's quite scary if you ask me. But this can be avoided by putting trust into your relationship and having a good communication with your partner. Always look for the red flags. If you realize this is happening to you or your friends, tell them. And if it's happening to you, leave. Now let's talk about Philautia. A lot of people might see this type of love as narcissistic and self-centered, and that's okay. It's not really about making yourself a priority at all times, but it's a healthy form of love where you recognize your self-worth and don't ignore your personal needs. I know sometimes it can be challenging to learn to love and accept yourself, but you can't expect this to just happen overnight. It's a process that takes time, and it's so important because if you think about it, if you don't love yourself first, how will anyone else be able to love you? Don't feel guilty about making yourself a priority when needed. Take care of yourself just like a parent would care for a child. Surround yourself with people who support you. Surround yourself with people who inspire you. Surround yourself with people who make you feel good. And last but not least, let's talk about agape. Agape is unconditional love. The Greeks thought it was quite radical, mostly because very few people seem capable of feeling it long term. But agape love goes beyond loving those who are easy to love when it's easy to love them. It's more like making the choice to love no matter what. It's love given without any expectations of receiving anything in return. I think we can say it's like a personal decision to spread love in any circumstances, even destructive or dangerous situations. Agape is not a physical act, it's a feeling. I think Mother Teresa is a good example of someone who shows this kind of love. She devoted her life to helping those in need without expecting anything in return. But you don't have to be a saint or a god to show this kind of love. Some small actions like staying conscious of your actions and offering your time and charity to someone in need without expecting anything in return are some ways of showing agape. To me, it's somehow kind of unrealistic because most people expect something in return always. And I'm not saying it's impossible to reach, but this kind of love is just very unlikely to happen. And to end this episode, I think we can all agree that with different people, you might experience different kinds of love. Let me know which kind of love is the most important one according to you. And see you on the next episode.